Hello, awakened souls and star people. Thank you so much for joining me again for this episode of Ascend the Matrix podcast. I'm your host, Chrys King. I'm a shamanic healer, ascension guide, ascended astrologer, and psychic business mentor to mystics and lightworkers and starseeds. And I have an incredible guest here today who is also a friend of mine. His name is Ben Carroll. Many of you all know him as the Wizard of Sound on Instagram. And he is a master musician and sound healer whose music has touched the hearts of people around the world. His incredible album, Becoming Light, which I listened to on repeat for years now, reached top 10 on Billboard's New Age chart, generating worldwide airplay. With his continued studies in metaphysics, consciousness, and the effect of sound and vibration on the body and mind, Ben gracefully transitioned his career from being a universal recording artist to utilizing his talents in service to the ascension of humanity during this time of awakening. His goal is to help foster elevated states of consciousness by utilizing sacred sound to facilitate deep inner peace, healing, and alignment with the higher frequencies available to all at this time. Ben, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to be hanging out. It's been a minute.
It has been a minute, and I like that it said that you gracefully transitioned from your career as a rock star and a universal recording artist to becoming the Wizard of Sound, as my clients and myself call you. For those listening, Ben has come to many of my retreats and done sound healing activations in person, and I, as the shamanic leader, have to do everything in my power to tether everyone in their body because they start floating up into a vortex when he gets started. And it's really incredible. Many of you who have attended his, is it monthly that you do it on Sundays, your sound healing?
Twice a month.
Yeah, twice a month when they're on Sundays. And I've attended a few, and there are so many activations that come through just from your voice and just through sound. So there's something very starseed happening with you. There's something very galactic happening with you, but there's also something just very, I'm going to call it 5D Earth, because it is earthy, but it's more organic matrix Earth. You know, the music that you have, it may be galactic and starseed, but it's of this Earth as well. So tell us a little bit before we go back in time and talk about this graceful transition from rock star to sound healer. I want to talk a little bit about what you do and what you offer right now.
Sure. Yeah. So the graceful transition was kind of like a slow, comfortable fall down the stairs. I only hit my head a few times. No, so I mean, I was on Universal Records for a good decade or so. A band that I'm actually now no longer a member of, but I was until fairly recently. A band named Ra. I signed to Universal Records when I was 25 years old. Had songs on the radio and did all that, and that was fun and exciting, but it was never extremely fulfilling. And ultimately, stuck with that for years. But I moved to Maine in around 2010. After Ra stopped nonstop touring, we actually took 4 years off. And as soon as I got out of that lifestyle, I started reactivating because I had been into a lot of stuff when I was younger. I always combing the metaphysical section of the bookstore and being aware of so many things. And that kind of all fell to the side when I got pulled into that crazy lifestyle. But when I moved to Maine, I kind of settled down and kind of stepped out of that for a while, and also completely stopped drinking and just being out of the craziness, things started to shift. But also what happened around that time is I started really working on my voice. I was a guitarist in that band. I was not the singer. And I started singing a lot. I started working with a vocal coach, Jamie Vendera, who's amazing, who's a very famous vocal coach these days. But he's been a friend of mine for many, many years, decades. I started working with him and singing a lot, and that's kind of like when everything started coming back online, creating sound and vibration in retrospect, speaking in retrospect. That's when the transitions really started happening. The reawakening really started happening, starting to bloom into the awareness that I was kind of exploring when I was younger. Mm-hmm. And and then how I found my way to be doing what I'm doing now. It doesn't need to be the whole podcast, so I'll just whip it all out right now because I tell the story way too much. But and we have far more fun things to talk about. But
Well, I find this part very interesting, if I may interject, the
sure.
idea of, I was an actor. I went to a performing arts high school. My parents called me Hollywood. I was always going to be an actor and a director, and that was my trajectory at some point. But as a kid, I had moccasins and a drum and a rattle because I was obsessed with the Native American part of my lineage and the Celtic part of my lineage. And I was obsessed with witches and mythical creatures. And I thought I had magical powers. There were these things as a child that were always there. As a teenager, I would walk around my theater class and say, do you know that you have a moon sign? You have moon signs too. And it's always been there. I was given my first astrology book when I was 16. So although there was this outer expression of my false matrix astrology chart that really identified with being the actor, lots of Leo in my chart, lots of wanting to be famous, wanting those things. I'm sure that showed up for you in some way as well, where we let the human play out what it needed to play out before the light of the soul really came in and touched us and had that awakening happen. And your story of being signed and being a rock star is quite interesting because it's the lifestyle that we would associate as being one of the most opposite types of experiences to the, top of Mount Shasta, calling in the Arcturians to come beam you up kind of experience. So you had the pendulum swing was quite strong, as it is for many light workers. Yours was just accentuated in certain ways. And I also find it interesting that for those of us on the path, we get a lot of our dreams come true early on in life, and we get the things that many people strive their entire life for. And we're like, this isn't it.
Yeah, exactly.
Even the drinking. My mother would totally disagree with you that alcohol is bad for you. Ooh. Sorry, Mom. But like my whole family, they should not be donating any organs. Okay. And for us, why didn't it work? Why can't we just get drunk every night and watch TV? Why isn't it good enough? That's what a lot of light workers tell me, and people that I work with in ceremony and in sessions, is that they're like, why can't I just go to the yoga class, drink my Starbucks, argue with my husband, and go to sleep, and that be good enough? And I'm like, man, when you say it like that, it shouldn't be good enough. But actually, so many people have accepted that and are totally fine with that. Or maybe they're not, and that's why they're drinking every night. But for those of us, there's this huge influx of energy that comes in where it's almost like, did you feel at some point, even when you were in the band and you were living that lifestyle, that you were almost like in someone else's movie, or that this was not truly the experience you were meant to have, but you're just kind of going along with it? I have felt that.
Very, very, very much. I had a lot of things happen when I was younger, and I was definitely, I would say, more awake than most of the people that I was around all the time. And part of playing music for me wasn't necessarily about becoming a rock star. It was, I was very much obsessed with like being the best, and I used to practice a lot. But I would always I had a rule for myself. Like I'd always set aside a certain amount of time at the end of my practice to just play with sound. And what I was literally doing was with creating drones and creating synthy sounds with my guitar and creating soundscapes and traveling on them. Because that was something that I had, I had a lot of traveling experiences as a kid. And that was why I liked music, because
when you say traveling experiences, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah,
I have a really good feeling about what you mean about that, but I just want
so just utilizing, in my case, sound to attain altered states of consciousness and kind of be able to drift a little bit in consciousness, speaking about from what I was doing at that point in time, being able to kind of, I just get open, and it would be basically attaining the same kind of state of consciousness you get to open up the channel. I was doing that
Right.
all the time when I was a kid, not necessarily channeling, but I was definitely getting information coming through when I was younger. And I had an experience when I was a little kid of tuning into a drone of a plane engine and attaining an altered state of consciousness. I just like laying on a hammock in the summer, a Cessna plane going slowly by, and just like going someplace. Like it felt like, I mean, thinking about how fast a plane goes by, it was probably no more than a couple minutes because it probably didn't fly right over, but it was off in the distance. But it's like such a core memory for me. It was like it happened for hours. I just went someplace, and that like is what opened the door for me to start really playing with sound. And I started sleeping with a fan in my room on after that, because I was like looking for that soothing sound, the sound of the drone, and humming along with it and kind of traveling on the sound, and sometimes traveling out of my body, just in not like mind-blowing amazing experience ways, but it was just like comfortable and natural when I was younger. And that was how I brought that approach to music all the way into my practicing. And then you get to a point where you're like 19, 20, 21 years old, and you're like, I got to make a living in this world. Like, what am I going to do if I don't play music? Like, there's nothing else I want to do. I'd rather die than not play music. And everybody tells you, well, if you want to be a musician and make enough money to survive, you have to get songs on the radio and sign to a record label and tour and all that. So I was like, well, that's what I have to do. And I did it. I was very fortunate.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it wasn't fulfilling because it wasn't what drove me. It wasn't what was drawing me to music. It wasn't playing with sound and attaining altered states of consciousness, just opening up and finding states of bliss and all that. But it was what it was in retrospect was a really potent boot camp for working with the energy of lots of people at once, for thousands of people a night.
Yeah. Yeah, I find it interesting that even in my process, from the acting and directing and even running $1 million businesses in the corporate world, when I got older and my path took me in different directions, it all seemed to lead toward here. The acting, shamanic healers, shamans, they're performers, they're dancers, they're sacred clowns. Like the energy you're describing right now sounds very shamanic. The drum, the rattle, those are all tools, sound tools to get you into altered states so you can go on vision quests, so you can move between realms. It's what you're doing, and it's also a part of your lineage, if I'm not mistaken, as you do have a lot of Native American in your lineage, or what they would have called back in the day Indian in your lineage. And
so it's certainly not just tied to Native American. Like that's all cultures going back before modern culture, deeply tied to sound, vibration, music, and movement connected to that. And
that's why I was mentioning earlier that there is something galactic that you hold, and I feel that, but there's also just something very earthy that's been here for thousands and thousands and thousands of years that's innate to the earth and human experience here. And so tell me about where you were when you started to, because if it were me and I was a rock star and I was involved in this lifestyle, it probably would have taken me into some dark places, or into some realizing, as life did, whether it was going to clubs, whether it was being around certain types of groups of people when I was younger, whether it was drinking every weekend with my friends, I realized I can't do this. This isn't made for me. My system isn't designed for this. So tell me about this graceful transition out of that into what you're doing now.
Yeah, so when Ra went into a little bit of a hiatus in sometime around 2010, I moved up to Maine and started working with my voice a lot, and started, also exploring meditation. Like I feel like the voice actually reactivated it, but I started exploring meditation and all different stuff like that, and getting out to different events. And one of the events I got out to experience was a sound healing event where someone was just playing singing bowls. They literally only had 3 singing bowls, and that was all they had. That's all they played, and it was like so magical. The power, the sound of the bowls was just so powerful to me. That was the first time I had ever heard a singing bowl. Well, the second time, because the first time they were playing when I was filing into an auditorium to see someone speak, same person playing. And like the sound just kind of like, what is that? And it drew me over. And then I made it to the event shortly after that. And this was in 2012. And
single podcast I do, the year 2012 comes up every single time. It came up with Janine. Every single one. I end up almost looking for it. I'm like, what year did that happen in? And it's not always a dark night of the soul the way it was for me in that karmic relationship I had in 2012. It's just an awakening. So many people had an awakening in that year, or some type of activation. And would you say that this was the activating point that maybe brought all of it together?
I would say it was the start of the buildup to it. It really came together in 2014, but everything was shifting drastically, massively then, setting me up to get to a point where I had a massive experience where my whole life completely shifted and changed.
Yeah.
But yeah, going to that first sound healing, like hearing the bowls, like I was curious what it would be like to sing with the bowls. So I ended up, getting bowls and singing with them and traveling on the sound. And really, I didn't even realize that at the time, but retrospectively, like doing really similar things to what I was doing when I was a kid, when I was younger, kind of like creating drones and sounds with guitar and traveling on it, just playing the bowls, singing with the bowls and traveling on that and having major, massive, mind-blowing experiences doing it.
Mm-hmm. What were some of those experiences like?
So as I started like getting comfortable allowing myself to open up and allow the sound to come through me, I started attaining states of consciousness where different memories started coming back, memories of different lifetimes, in really potent ways. And doing that for a while leading up to 2014, where I had a massive experience where I felt like I was on a different plane of existence for 9 whole days, July 9th through 18th, because one of my Facebook memories that I posted during that period of time came up yesterday, and I was like, oh yeah, this was 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
I was at the tail end of that experience, and so many things happened. Like, I was functioning from a completely different energetic state. The way I interacted with people, the way the world felt, was completely different. Yet I was still here. I've started calling it a micro ascension experience, because that's literally what it was. I got blasted into a different state of being. And then what happened is I cycled down, and as time went on, I cycled down to a really, really low point. By the time fall of 2014 came around, I was very much in a dark night of the soul, worried about all the finances and everything like that. And I know retrospectively that because I've experienced it multiple times since then, but when you attain a new state of resonance, and that was a big jump, then all the stuff that's no longer a vibrational match starts to bubble up to the surface. And that's why a big part of the work that I do is shadow work. Shadow work is always tied in with light work, because as we shift our vibration, these things start to come to the surface. And, it's natural to be like, oh no, what did I do wrong? But it's like, it's never like you did anything wrong. You're actually doing the right things, and that stuff makes itself known to be utilized because it's ready to be released, and also utilized as fuel to get you even further up the spiral.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And I talk with clients, especially Ascension and Awakening clients, people who come to me specifically for that, who are going through their first dark night of the soul, or they're going through one that they can feel was spiritually initiated. It was like a Kundalini awakening that happened. Like for me, I had a dark night of the soul after a karmic relationship, but then I had one after Kundalini awakening, and then I had one after another Kundalini activation. So there were times where it happened due to normal life stuff, where it felt like the money and the friends, and it was just a dark place you were in. But then there was this spiritual emergency that you're going through. But what I find is that it happens multiple times to those of us who are brave enough to keep leveling up, to become a butterfly, and then decide to become an even bigger, cooler butterfly, and then to become an even bigger, cooler butterfly after that. It's like we're not just a caterpillar and a butterfly. We get to just keep doing this process. And would you say that 2014 and that dark night of the soul you went through there was the one that really shook you?
That was the one where I realized that everything in the world that I'd been taught was a lie. I had a big dark night of the soul before pre-2012 too, which was more of your classic dark night of the soul. Like my whole life fell apart, my relationship ended. The place where I live fell apart. The band stopped touring. Everything happened at once. That was the life crashing around.
Right.
2014 was I had been doing the work, and I opened up 3 more levels above, and then all of a sudden the whole world, it wasn't me that didn't make sense anymore. It was the whole world that didn't make sense.
And you had to come back and retrieve all your human stuff, all your ancestry, all the stuff that didn't match where you were going, all the density that was being held in your energy, maybe even, like for me, addictive patterns that were passed down to me and that were activated. All these things had to clear during these dark nights of the soul. And there are multiple of them. And what happened after this experience? You know, because there might be people listening to this right now who are going through what they would consider a dark night of the soul. And mine just dissipated over time with healing, whether it was microdosing, medicine, meditation, resting. There were things that accelerated it, I feel, but sometimes you just have to let the process happen, just like a caterpillar in the chrysalis. It just needs to take its form and do its thing. So take us to 2014 and where you started going from there.
Yeah, sure. So that's when I started holding space for people. And I wasn't doing sound healing for other people yet, because I always was like, I don't see that, and that's not what I'm called to do. Yeah. But I started holding group toning circles and working with a group of people, doing events, quite a few different places, and working intentionally with. And I had started doing this in working with these people in 2012, but I really stepped into it in 2014, working intentionally with group energy, creating vortexes of alignment to intentionally work towards shifting timelines and things like that, and started really getting deep into that. I was also this whole that whole batch of life was kind of revolving around a mentor of mine that I had from 2012 to 2014 or probably 2015. And all that stuff was all the people that I was working with and doing these things with and holding space for large groups of people with was kind of orbiting around that man who was a mentor of mine, David Lombard Sanapas. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I learned so much from that, from others, from David, but as well as just being in spaces where I'm activating myself and remembering how to download information. And, you know, so many things shifted and changed. Like my whole way of interacting with the world completely changed.
You were being fine-tuned, no pun intended, or pun intended.
Yeah, quite literally, you know, shifting cymatic patterns, shifting the pattern that I interface into this reality with. Very much so. That's exactly what I see it as now.
Do you feel that sound had contributed to getting out of the dark night of the soul and to accelerating the process of coming back into higher states of consciousness?
The dark night of the soul that I had in 2014 was very much financial, because I had, you know, not been touring, and I was spending all my time focused on these spiritual pursuits with people and only teaching guitar a couple days a week and really not making a lot of money. And I started, when I got low, I started freaking out. Yeah. So what helped is when I started doing sound events that kind of opened up the finances. Yeah. That was how the universe twisted my arm with it, because I was doing it all for myself, because I was just utilizing it as a tool to get myself activated and travel and download information. But then, in the matter of just a couple of weeks, all my guitar students dried up at once, like all together, like all good reasons. It's not like I started being a bad teacher. It's like everybody had a good excuse, but it all happened at once. And at the same time, I had been doing like some sound work because people knew I had the bowls and would offer me gigs, and I'd take it. But I'd only do like, I'd go and do your traditional sound bath. I'd play the singing bowls, and that was that. I wouldn't do what I did at home for myself, which was singing with the bowls. So I decided, as all my income dried up, I decided, well, maybe I'll go out and try and do what I do at home for other people and see how that goes. And that, well, went really, really well. Like instantly became what I did for a living.
Yes. I think that this is a good conversation to have, because when we bring up like money and our human and survival and all of that and spirit twisting your arm, that happens sometimes, because it sounds like your system and your human at the time was just resistant to not necessarily being of service, but just doing that for other people. You just didn't see that for yourself. And if that was meant for you on a higher plane to do that for others, it sounds like being of service to others, even though it was making you money, so it was serving self too. It was... People think we go from 3D to this 5D, if we want to keep it real simple like that, overnight, or it's just we have a Kundalini awakening and you're there. And there's this whole gradient process. There's this whole spectrum we move through where a lot of it is walking a tightrope and really helping, kind of doing this tug of war with your human, where you stepped into your soul mission because you had to out of survival, but you still stepped into it. And once you did, it swept you up. It sounds like. And that has happened for me several times in my process, where I thought, am I only doing this cacao ceremony to make money? But if I had not done that cacao ceremony that one time several years ago, I wouldn't have been able to make my rent back then. Okay. And those were not long periods of time where I was going through that, but those were pivotal times that sort of forced me into doing things that eventually became service to others, but I was serving myself. At first, it was almost like the higher self tricking the human into doing the thing that would help others and help the self. It's like, we've just got a lot of energies in our charts and in our human that doesn't see what the higher self can see.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we are in a place where the patterns we're functioning within are our society that we function within at this point in time, where we are, where that stuff is still a reality.
Yeah.
We have to make enough money to survive.
Yeah.
We have to put food on the table. I need electricity to run my online events.
That's right.
And it's not selfish to make money.
No, it isn't.
Doing your soul work. I think it's very far from selfish. It's like what you're here to do, and if you're not getting paid for it, you actually can't do it. Like when I first started, I was only doing donation based because I was in a place where I was like, I don't feel comfortable charging for this. I don't know what to charge. I'll just, I'll do donation based. And my first good batch of events were that way. And then there was one really beautiful day in Maine where it was one of those, the gorgeous early summer days, and nobody had to buy a ticket because it was just show up and leave a donation. And it was gorgeous out, and I didn't even want to be there, and nobody showed up. That was the last time I ever did an event for donation based. So then I started charging, and I started at like $20 or something. I'm like, I'll just do this. And then, as I started going to more and more places, I was getting really busy. And when I actually raised my price, at that time it was like to $40. And that would have been in like 2017. That's when all my events started selling out.
Yeah.
Like when I raised my price, all my events started selling out, and like that was like so in alignment, and it was good, and I was making enough money to live comfortably, and yeah. It
Yeah,
was,
well, this is a free business mentorship session for all you light workers and star seeds and healers out there who are starting your business. And we think it's real sweet of you to do the donation based and real humble and of service of you and real Buddha like. But I want you to hear that we tried that and it didn't work. Okay. There's a middle place. You don't have to charge $800 for each person to come to your sound event. Okay. But $40 is a good investment. It actually tells the client that, wow, this person knows their worth, or I'm going to get something out of this. I noticed that when I had ceremonies that were 11 classes and ceremonies at $11, sometimes people wouldn't show up. It was just $11. I can skip it. But when it was $55 or $77, people showed up because they felt like they invested in it, but also they got more out of it. It was like once I raised my prices, and I struggled with that a lot too. I don't want people to think that I only care about the money. All those programs that are in our society around spiritual practitionership and being a spiritual entrepreneur showed up in my process heavily. And I had to clear all of that out. And the more I did, the more successful I became. And we're all walking this tightrope. And I want everyone listening to hear that even we have gone through that whole process. What do we charge? What do we... This comes so naturally to me even, I'm just playing the bowls and singing. It's just so natural and I love doing it. Does that mean I don't am I not earning the money because I'm not hating it and I'm not struggling to do it? And it's not something that I went to school for 10 years to learn how to do. I just know how to do this. Should I be charging this amount of money for it? A lot of you listening are in that process right now, and we're telling you a lot of the galactic codes you have, the shamanic abilities that you have from other lives that you're pulling into this one, all of these magical witchy things that you just have naturally within you, this ability to move energy just by sitting next to someone as an empath, you can charge for that. Okay. Once I learned that, it was boo.
Yeah, and it's also the preservation of being able to be here. A lot of us are here not just to live, not just to have an earth experience, but to help with the shifting energies.
That is exactly right.
And we're literally the perfect analogy is we're all on an airplane and it's really turbulent. The world is our airplane and it's really turbulent right now. Are we going down? Well, short answer, no. But, things are bumpy and that the masks drop and, that's your lifeline. And if you're like, well, I can't put my mask on until I get everybody's mask on the plane, you're going to pass out first. You literally need to get yourself to a place where you can actually do the work that you're here to do without having to worry about your survival and, keeping yourself out of those financial dark nights of the soul, because that shuts off the work. That shuts off your intuitive powers. We're in those spaces of panic and fear. So we have to do whatever we have to do to get to a place where we can stay lit up.
Yes.
And in this world, part of staying lit up and staying alive is making enough money to survive.
Yeah.
And I have no qualms with that.
Yeah.
Because I respect where we are at in this world, and I know I am here, and you're here, and many of us are here to help with this turbulent time. Like I'm here to help people to integrate the higher frequency energies that are coming in that are causing this turbulence. And I'm sure that that's probably exactly what you're doing too, from a completely different perspective and working with a different energy. But the thing is still the same. We're helping people to raise their vibration enough where the higher frequency energies that are coming into this planet at this time are no longer a mismatch, no longer causing crazy turbulence, which is what brings on the dark night of the soul, because it's literally cymatics. You're being subjected to these higher frequency energies, and you've been in this nice, comfortable place holding this specific pattern. And as that higher frequency energies start to come in, that pattern starts to become chaotic, and there's nothing to latch onto anymore. And if you can't find a way to cycle up out of that to get to the next resonant frequency to have a new pattern snap in, then life is pretty crazy, and you get sucked into fear and all of the negative things that are happening at this time.
And it's easy to do so because the more the awakening is happening, the global elite, I have to be careful using the R word actually now because of censorship and things that happen on YouTube. So the very chameleon lizard-like thing that's happening on the planet and the control mechanisms, the archontic control mechanisms, the lunar matrix, there's so many mind control frequencies. 5G, there are so many things that are designed to keep us in these states of fear and survival and also in denser states. So I think it's definitely worth it when someone comes along who has natural abilities, who is here on a mission and is in alignment with their mission. They are the ones we should be giving our energy to receive from in the form of money and in the form of attention. And I feel like you're really doing that. And sound is the frequency of the universe, you know? So the work you're doing is shamanic to me, but it's also galactic. It touches many people at different places. And I think also the kind of work you're doing is, from what I can see psychically right now, it's just bringing people into coherence, bringing people into higher states using sound, using intention. You're channeling when I've been in your space and receiving your sound healing. There's a channeling that's happening. There's a transmission that's coming through, and people are receiving that based on where they are energetically, and their cells are even remembering something. Like right now, I'm just seeing all this vibration and cymatics happening in my mind right now. And even the music that we have today and have had for many years, Hollywood and the recording industry, that type of music is what you would call subverted. And correct? Is that the correct term?
Sure.
Like it's subverted or inverted. It's like it's not tuning us to our higher frequency or into an organic state of coherence, but actually doing quite the opposite.
Yeah, I mean, you can take that from different perspectives, and let's take it from different perspectives, because there's literally the perspective where our music could literally be intentionally put slightly out of tune from the natural patternings of the vibrational structure of the earth that we live on. You know, that's the whole 440 versus 432
right
tuning debate. But then there's also the way that music has been captured in a couple different ways. But speaking about specifically in songs, in the gatekeepers that are in place, in the types of songs that are allowed to become popular, and this has become less and less because the music industry is definitely
rapidly changing
song these days. But you're talking 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, the industry. And this isn't just music, but pushing things that cause fear, that cause violence, you know, pushing things like that. I don't think that's unintentional. It's to keep us in a lower resonant state. So there's that side of it being subverted, like literally the frequencies, but then also the content, and the way it's packaged. But it also, the biggest subversion to me is the intentional disconnection of frequency and vibration, whether it's in music or whatever, but the creation of that in our own vessel. You know, we're told that we're not good at music, we can't sing, all of that stuff, and that is so not true. That's like when I was talking about my reawakening, just the fact that I was using my voice again and just creating sound and vibration in my body activated something in me. And that has been taken away from us. I teach a lot, and I teach a lot of people how to sing. And everybody, the first thing they say is, like, I can't sing.
That's exactly, I was just about to say the same thing.
Yeah.
So many of my shamanic healers in my program, I'm like, let's do the shamanic callback, sing the song, call in the medicine spirit with song. I don't like to use my voice. I don't like to sing. My mother told me I couldn't sing. My teacher told me I couldn't sing. I was told I couldn't play music. I was told that playing music was for weirdos, or it wasn't going to make me money. There was so many programs given to people around music and theater and expression and art around how
it's the same program.
Yeah.
It's the same program, whether it's music, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the way we learn. It's the program of
Yes.
you don't know. These people know, and you have to listen to what these people tell you.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. Like, here's how it's done. Here's how you have to do it. You know, you have to write 3-minute songs if you want to be a successful musician, or you have to take this pill. You have to prescribe these pills if you want your patients to be healthy.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing. It's taking the power out of the hands of, because what I see when I work with people is not that I create sound and I'm like this magical god and my sound heals them. It's people. It allows people to let themselves move into a state of consciousness where they're able to release things and heal on their own. It's the power. They're accessing their own power.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's what we need.
That we're moving out of this priest-king consciousness that was the age of Pisces, and where you went to the church for the download that didn't even really come from God. It came from some really plagiarized, subverted, inverted text. And a lot of this is Saturnic and satanic, and it goes back to the Babylonian times where the powers that be, they don't censor me for saying Alpha Draconian. So the Alpha Draconians really started the implementation of all this. You said what?
The Alfreds.
The Alfreds. Yes, that's our code name for them. It's so ridiculous. And I feel like there's so much power being given away in all of this process. And what's interesting that I find is that they're preying on our human, I would say weaknesses, but just our human system, and how the human brain and the human body and the system that we have can get addicted to things. You could say, because I've had people say, yeah, but you're the one buying the music. They're the ones buying the cigarettes. They're the ones buying the drugs and buying the alcohol. And it's like, but they're giving us things to become addicted to, just like even the music. There's mind control frequencies within the music, and it's making certain music addictive even. And I've experienced this in my process where we're worshiping these Hollywood elites, these stars, these musicians, actors. It's all of this hierarchical consciousness that comes in. And so people like us, but also people like you who are making music that is meant to bring people into coherence and bring people together, that really is a representation of that unity consciousness that we're moving into. And I think that, you know, the kind of music that you're creating and the kind of music that many people are creating right now that is similar, and a lot of shamanic healers and the way they're creating music is the new wave, pun intended. And I think that many of us, light workers and starseeds, as I was talking about on a previous podcast, are in a liminal phase right now because you have become very popular on social media, and your album was very popular and people are loving it. But also the genre you're in and what you're doing is still pretty fringe to the billions of people that are out there. You know, I think in 2027 and beyond, that will really start to shift. But I also find, as we were talking about earlier, that many of us are in this liminal phase where we're getting I'm going to call it 3D results or the physical results out here, but then we're going back into these incubation periods and these liminal phases because we're preparing for even greater levels of visibility. And I'm speaking to many spiritual practitioners and entrepreneurs and healers out there, new waves of visibility and income and abundance coming in. Yes, but we have to prepare energetically for that, and we're being fine-tuned again. And we were talking earlier how for the past year or so, I made a major life change, changed my name legally, moving to Mount Shasta, changed my business in all these different ways. So my system attributed this liminal phase that I'm in to my personal astrological transits, which are very liminal right now, and everything that I just did and birthed, which is new. It's kind of like being a mother to newborns and just feeling like you're, all I do is give milk and try to go to sleep, and I don't have a life. And that's how I feel right now in certain ways in my business. So I feel that liminal phase very viscerally for me, but I'm finding it with many people that we know, many people who are in the space and being of service the way we are. And I think that That's a really great conversation to have right now, because many people listening and many people out there who are ascending and have done all this work are in this liminal phase and going through dark nights of the soul again. And just like you talked about in 2014, there's these surges of energy and these upticks of energy, but then there's the result after, like the Schumann spike that we had about 6 to 8 hours ago. I felt it first. I feel it hours before it's detected by these technologies, and solar flares as well. But we just had this huge Schumann spike. And so there was this increase of energy and I couldn't sleep, but then there's the slump after that. Okay. It's almost like the coming down off of a high. So tell me where you are in your process right now with the ascension, because obviously we know you're here to ascend the matrix and you're activated in your soul mission. But as a light worker yourself, as someone who is on the path and ascending with all the people that you're being of service to, where are you at in your process now?
I am very much feeling the same liminal space as are so many people. Like the community there that I run, the Sacred Sound Inner Circle, on the calls, we talk about this all the time, because everybody that I talk to, friends, you and I were talking about this a little bit before the call, and other friends that I talk to regularly. Everybody's feeling this, and I've been really feeling this for 8 or 9 months, but very, very, very strongly for like the past 4 months of being in a place where I feel like what came before has ended.
Yeah.
Like what was going on before has ended, and what is coming has not arrived yet. And I've been slowly unpacking this, as well as doing a lot of shadow work in preparation, and a different type of shadow work.
Yeah.
For months now. And the way that I've come to see it is this liminal space that we're in, that so many of us are in, those of us that are a little bit more aware of these energetic shifts. We're kind of getting to a place where I feel like we're moving into a place where it's no longer about waking people up. Moving out of that phase, moving out of helping people to figure out how to work with the energy, and moving towards a phase of coming together, those of us that are holding that energy, coming together to turn the freaking lights on. Like it's really so we can,
and to actually be it. We've been I feel like you and I are on the same page here, and we're not above anyone. I think those of us who are pioneers, or those of us who woke up first, we're not ahead of anyone. We decided to walk through the cobwebs first. Okay. Like we somewhat earned where we're at right now. For the people who are going to wake up, who woke up in 2018, 2020, 2027, people are waking up all the time, and no one's ahead of anyone. It's just where we are in the process, and we're building bridges. I feel like you and I have built many bridges in the past 10 years for people to cross and to dance on and to play within, and to create bridges between these realms, and to bridge the gap between the human self and the higher self and the 3D and 5D. And now it's time to really step into that being, and instead of waking people up, just being the awakened soul, being the more ascended version of ourselves, really tapping into that unity consciousness frequency, and just being a magnet, being a radiating force. Do you feel like you're moving into that phase? Yeah.
And I think what this liminal phase is completely different than anything I've experienced before. And I feel like what's going on is we're heading towards a big shift. But what we're doing is kind of like, rather than having the big shift and then the dark night of the soul afterwards, we're kind of like preparing ourselves energetically, but it's also starting to filter out into our realities of clearing out the stuff that pull us down. And I've had to step back from so much these past 6, 8, 9 months.
Is it because you don't have the energy?
It's a lot of things that have just been exhausting. And what it is, I know I'm supposed to like be doing less, stepping back, The human's like, well, now I make half the money I was making 6 months ago. So what the
Right.
heck? But stepping back and out of that mindset and beginning to be able to see things in different ways and just a deeper shifting of our understanding of the way the world patterns.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out how to put this into good words. Um, having this time of like a drawn out shift, I think in the long run is going to give us a much better opportunity to make a much greater shift and then actually be able to land on steady footing, which is where in the past, a lot of times when we have the big shifts, we land on
Murky
steady
waters.
footing and then it becomes wobbly.
Yes.
And then we crash.
Yes.
I feel like I'm hoping anyways.
There's a mastery that I'm feeling for some of us. Like we're mastering this. We've been through this before many times. And I'm talking to other awakened souls out there who are listening, because there are some souls out there who are going to listen to this podcast one day who maybe don't have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram or all these websites or doing this full time, who are just in the same frequency as we're at right now. Okay. We're expressing it in a different way than you are, but you're right in the same liminal phase and in the same mastery level that we're in. And I feel that what's happening right now is designed to really get us to master new levels of abundance as well. Because when I tune to this, I'm feeling this frequency shift with us. It's affecting the money. It's affecting the way clients are coming in. It's affecting visibility, all the things that make the human freak out because it's supposed to just keep growing, right? Well, in these frequencies, we go through this like a sine wave, this downward spiral and this upward tick. And the mastery really comes in trusting that whole process and knowing that if our frequency is shifting again, and we've already gone through this before, so it's not as dark as it once was, but it's going to affect the way everything that we're doing. Also, if we had the same amount of people coming in and the same amount of experiences we were having before, we wouldn't be able to gestate and incubate and go through that. And we have to trust that because the human says, what about the bills? And also, I was planning to go on a trip to Greece to do some kind of grid work, okay? That was my cherry on top of the, us light workers, we're meant to go all over the world and do all kinds of work, and we are going to do that, you all. But there's times where the money being energy, clients being a representation of energy, and just your soul family. I mean, I don't know about you, but it feels like the amount of people in my life has also shrunk. They're still there. It's just the connections are...
Very much.
Yeah, it's like there's something being filtered out, fine-tuned, people being moved like a chessboard into different places, into different roles. And may I just kind of tap in real quick, only because I keep hearing this in my mind. Are you around the age 50 or 51?
I am 48.
Okay. So you are just moving into, but you are going to be 50 or 49 this year?
Correct.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I may have said this to you before, but for those listening, you're also moving into a huge portal, which many people start feeling around 47, but definitely around 48, 49, you start feeling what we call in astrology Chiron return. And that is a major portal for you that you're moving into. And it's one of the most healing portals that anyone can go through. And for healers, it's when you really step into like the most aligned version of your spiritual healing soul mission. And I'm going through Chiron square Chiron right now, which is the 90-degree angle version of what you're about to go through. So you're going through the completion of the cycle, like the hand is getting back to the 12 on the clock. Mine is on the 9 over here, that 90-degree angle where I've got another 90 degrees before I get to my Chiron return. And there is... I feel this Chiron energy coming in for some of us, even some of the people that we know in our circle, like Amy Belair. There are transits of Chiron going on. And so, again, that can bring up all this density that we thought we cleared. I thought I cleared that in a meditation 10 years ago. I thought I did that work in a medicine journey 5 years ago. And you did, but now we're reaching back deeper into other lives, back into the starseed part of it. There's something deeper that's coming up, and there's a deeper level of embodiment that it's pulling us into.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that. This liminal phase, it feels like I've been in a shell, in an egg for months, like disconnected from a lot of people. Just like you said, my circle's shrunk a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely feeling that, but at the same time, I've been going through a different type of shadow work. Like I've done a lot of the shadow work where I've gone into the big things repeatedly, and I feel like I'm in a good place. I am in a really good place. I'm comfortable with myself in the way that I function
feel
in the world.
same. Like I'm not in some crisis.
But I feel like all of the micro traumas, all of the little things that like cause us to hiccup in our lives. Like, oh, that hurt, but then you just like keep going. All of those seem to be like the silt on the bottom of the river starting to come up, and it has to be worked with in a different way. And I feel like that is part of this liminal space that I've been in right now and a lot of us are in right now, is working with these micro traumas that actually shift our version of reality, because they've been so many little things that catch us and they put us on a different path and put us on a different path. And in order to step into the next stage of really embodying a higher version of yourself, those catches that reroute your focus have to be dredged up and released, but it can't be done in the same way because you're not pulling a massive rock out of the river. You're pulling out microscopic particles. Yeah. So that's what I feel like is the shadow work side of what we're going through right now.
Yeah, and you have to operate with the little pebbles differently than you do the boulders, especially because the human looks at them differently too. It doesn't receive the trauma in the same way. And what I'm seeing psychically right now is like timelines. Do you sometimes feel like there's this recalibration of timelines, and we're all creating our own, but as a collective, there's all these timelines that are becoming available that still aren't the most optimal ones. And some of us are just waiting because we keep getting bronze and silver, but we're just waiting for the gold to happen almost. Like we would be fine with bronze and silver, but we're almost already attuned to understanding that isn't the highest timeline, that we're not just going to take any opportunity, and I'm using that as a metaphor for the timelines and the trajectories that we could go on. But it looks like there's all of this recalibration of matrices. It's the way it looks in my mind right now, and I've never seen it this way or understood it this way, and this is helping me right now get an idea of why we're in a liminal phase, some of us, because it's like if we took some of these, it would take longer to get to these higher timelines because we would start down on another video game level, and we're almost skipping some levels that we don't need to do. I'm not fully understanding that, but do you? Yeah,
that's tied into what I was talking about. Timeline work is definitely something I'm very called to, and I can definitely see what you're picking up with that. And my interpretation of it is, what I was talking about with the shadow work on the micro level, so to say, working through that stuff is allowing us to get off this, to avoid those timelines that aren't optimal, that aren't, maybe not like Dark Night of the Soul, everything crashes bad, but getting rid of those little things that subtly affect our state of consciousness and keep us pulling back in this liminal space, this liminal phase that we've been in, is fine-tuning us to the point where we're able to align with higher paths, and we're all going through it together so that we can all choose it together, because when we all do timeline work and timeline shifts together, it obviously makes it a significantly more powerful and potent experience.
Yeah.
It can affect the collective significantly more.
Yeah. What are you like in your sound work and in your community work, what are you finding with clients and the people that are coming to you? Like, what is the process that people are in right now? I know that we're in this liminal phase, but what are you
Yes.
finding?
Everybody's in this.
Yeah.
Everybody is in this space of liminality where things just don't feel right anymore, and there's a lot of exhaustion and disconnection. But it's really the body just like going back, pulling in that eggshell, cutting ourselves off, not by choice, but getting ourselves totally like turned inwards to do this processing so that hopefully, well, definitely, but it feels like I'm ready for it to end like 6 months ago. But it keeps dragging on and getting more potent. But hopefully on the other side, some major shifts can take place, because I've been through several major shifts. But the big major shift that we were all going for and trying to shift timelines for in 2012, like I don't know that ever happened on one level in the way that everybody was looking for it at that time. Like,
Right.
now we're going to ascend. There's either going to be a major solar flare or whatever, all the different storylines where now we're all like in 5D.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever that simple, because
Never. I agree.
there's so much of these little vibrational catches or big vibrational catches that are shifting our frequency that we couldn't hold that. I was gifted that experience for 9 days of holding that higher frequency so that I could understand what it's like and why I couldn't stay there, and then start working on others with it. But yeah, moving forward, I think it's like what I do is going to be something completely different, even though maybe it'll look similar, but I really don't know what's coming next. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. I don't know how I'm going to be doing it. I mean, it's most likely going to be sound, because that's the only thing I've ever done in my whole life. But
yeah. I feel with your Chiron return, and I may have said this to you before. It feels similar. I don't know, or maybe I said it to you, and I'm having deja vu, and we've already had this conversation and all that jazz. But I feel that your work will become even more channeled and shamanic. I don't know how what other word to use. It doesn't necessarily mean drums and rattles. I just mean helping people almost like medicine journeys using sound. And not that it's not already that way, but it's the depth is going to increase, and your embodiment in that is going to increase. I really feel that for you from an outside perspective. And surrendering, I love that you're surrendering to the not knowing, because we've had to do that before. We didn't know before, and it turned out great. So it's got to just keep turning out great, right? But it's also
that's where having been through this multiple times becomes really helpful, because now you've been on the roller coaster long enough. You know that you're not going to just keep going down and down and down and down and down and down and down, because roller coasters don't work that way.
Right.
Eventually, you start cycling back up, and it's not scary anymore, and you can be in it, and it's not as an exciting of a life as like when everything's like working and flowing and there's tons of people that are attracted to you. But that's part of the way it works, and I feel like something big is coming.
Yes, I feel that too. And I just did an episode about 2027, and I know that there are many energies that are going to coalesce at that time that show up in many teachings, and I feel that as well. But I feel for some of us, we're already preparing for that major shift that will happen for people then. We're already doing it now. The great
many
flash,
what I've seen.
Yeah. It's like the Great Solar Flash is not just one event. It's this whole experience that will happen over a few years, and it will be in a pocket of 3. And some of us are already experiencing that because we're collapsing timelines. Time isn't real. Just like Spirit told me on that podcast I did recently, that there's a 5D version of Earth releasing solar flares, and there's some of us responding to those solar flares, even when the sun right now, or did I say Earth or the sun? 5D version of the sun is releasing solar flares, and we're responding to that because we're sort of, this liminal phase also feels like having your foot in one pool and a foot in the other pool. It's like we're also in an in-between phase where many of us are already dancing in that realm, and parts of our human are in this realm, and our media, our money, our root chakra is definitely getting our attention to focus on the physical or more 3D false matrix at times. And so we're all just trying to do our best in this process with this transition that we're in. But like I said in other times, transitioning from carbon to crystalline light or embodying your plasmic light body, that is going to take many different shifts and liminal phases and dark nights of the soul and transformative points to come through. And when you tune psychically to 2026 and 2027, what are you feeling? Are you feeling that these talks about 2027, that there's something to that? I'm just wanting your perspective. I know what I've received.
Yeah, I do feel like something is shifting, and it comes back to what we were talking about a little while ago about working with the energy instead of learning how to work with the energy. Like that's literally, I think, what's going on right now with the liminal space is all about. It's about stepping in and being able to do that, but not just individually. There's so many of us experiencing this at the same time, because the true test for the next round is so many of us coming together to do it together, even if we're not aware that we're doing it together.
Right.
Because things are definitely shifting hard, and like you were talking about, friends and clients that have had to go back to their old day jobs. Like that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a place where you can probably be comfortable and probably not have to overexert yourself and spend all the energy that you don't have, because we're in this cocoon right now.
That's right.
And it's that dipping down and pulling back up and dipping down and pulling back up. Just if we can allow ourselves to be in that space and to not freak out, but to just hold the line together and continually rising together, it's all going to work out.
I believe you. We just got to get all these newly awakened souls and these people going through a dark night of the soul right now, and some of these people who have had to go back to their day job from letting their ego make up stories about what that process means. Because the soul doesn't care. The soul's like, I know you're going to be okay. The higher self knows. I wish your ego would not make up all these stories about it, but that's going to happen, and that's also part of the mastery, because when your ego lies to you about how you failed and how you're moving in the wrong direction, and then you end up still becoming a famous sound healer and still moving across the country and following your soul mission and, still being okay, you start to master the ego that way. Because then you think, wow, you've been wrong quite a bit of times, even though right here in this hour, I am believing you right now. That's why I feel anxious. But even in times where I feel like freaking out about my business, right? Which is that kind of, it's gotten so big. I have triplets now. Am I able to feed all of them? Am I going to be able to do this? Am I going to be able to sleep at night? Those sorts of things. I still have this underlying knowing that it's going to work out somehow, whereas other times in my life during those dark nights of the soul, there was a hopelessness. There was a wanting to just leave. And so there's a new set points that we're reaching. And I appreciate you bringing through your codes here and for doing the work that you're doing and being such a master at it. And I think you are a wizard of sound and that you've got all kinds of healing codes you're bringing through. I know it's awesome to say that people are just healing themselves and I'm just holding space for that. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to give you a few more flowers than that, but I appreciate you seeing your clients' power and knowing that we all have the ability to heal ourselves and offering a bridge and a channel for people to do that in and to play in as well. Because the work we do is fun. Working with medicine, in beautiful spaces with people, working with other beings from other realms, singing and tuning people to new frequencies. If we didn't have all the bills and all the 3D stuff, we literally would be like kids in a candy store. Okay? But we're doing our best in mastering this, and I appreciate you sharing your story, and I appreciate you continuing to do the work that you're doing and following your soul mission. And I feel really good about this. Is there anything else you want to share before we go?
I guess I should share where to find me. This community.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that, but
Yeah.
go ahead.
I do 2 events per month, the sound events online, and those are really potent. They're designed for headphones, and there's binaural beats layered in and all that. But I also within the community that I have, I do one toning call a month where we get together and do toning, and that's really powerful. And then one call per month where we're talking about all these kind of things. I've been talking about the liminal space quite a lot.
Yeah.
And that's actually, that's been great for having windows into other people's experiences with doing that as well. Because a lot of the people that are in that are also sound healers and stuff like that. So it's people that are already aware of their own power, and just having that window into other people's experiences is comforting as well.
Yeah, it is.
Mm.
Yeah, I have a community called the Ascended Collective, and we do medicine call. We just had one last night, and people come to it and have these big experiences, and they think, gosh, I almost didn't come. I almost told myself I was too tired. I almost didn't. I said, we sort of have to get our human to go to the community spaces and to gather, because once we do, we feel so witnessed and held. And this is the time to be gathering in community. And for those of us who are on our soul mission, to be creating community spaces where people can gather and step into their power, but also be seen and held, because many of you all out there, your physical, your birth family, your family unit that you're in, they don't understand you. The people at work, the friends around you, they're not on the same path as you are. So Ben has created a beautiful community for you to heal within and be seen. And we can find all of that at soundheals.us.
Yep, that's
correct. And I'll put all of that in the show notes below, including how to follow Ben on social media if you're not already. Thank you, Ben, so much for being here with us on Ascend the Matrix podcast. And if anyone is interested in working with me or have questions, you can go to chrisking.com, ascended-astrology.com, and medicinealchemist.com. Thank you all so much for joining us for this conversation. Thank you all for stepping into your soul mission and for being on this path. We are all in this together and ascending the matrix. I love you all, and we'll see you next time.